This is Matt Fetty in Two Boxing. I'm delighted to be joined by Campbell Hatton. Campbell, I've just seen you put through your paces by Matt. How are you feeling after that session?
Yeah, glad it's over really, but no, we're working hard as we always do, but stepping things up now. We've had a good Christmas, ticked over, so I had a good starting point anyway. Was fairly fit, but getting the weight off and kicking on.
I was going to ask you about that. So Christmas and New Year must be a bit of a nightmare for fighters if they don't either know what they're doing fight-wise and stuff. Did you enjoy yourself over Christmas? Did you have a bit of weight to get off, or were you sort of in the gym and doing bits anyway?
Yeah, Matt will grasp me up here, won't he? No, it was a busy year for me. I had 5 fights in about 9 months, so it was good to get a little breather, and I did have a little blowout, get a bit of scran down me, but yeah, stayed fit though. Like carried on doing bits of training and that, so not felt too bad since I come back.
No, you're looking good, Nick, in good shape, ready to obviously start camp for whenever your next fight is. But what's your go-to meal then? What's your cheat meal? Now he's gone away, you can mention it now, can't you?
What we got? No, I like a Chinese me. That's my favourite, I reckon. Sweet and sour chicken, salt and pepper chip. What were we saying then?
So what's your favourite cheat meal?
Do you know what, I'm not fussy really. I'll eat absolutely anything. Something greasy and horrible.
Oh, God. Your first year as a professional, when you're looking back now from where you are now, how do you sort of sum it up? How do you feel about it?
I think it was perfect, to be honest, from a learning point of view, because there was ups and downs, and there was plenty to look back and change and for us to come back and work with. I think if I'd have just gone in there and bulldozed everyone, I think I'd probably be in a similar position now as I was in my debut. But I've had plenty of learning curves, and I think I've been match spot on as well, where they've been the right fights, but they've not all been just knockovers, and they've come to throw a few problems, whatever different ones they might be, whether the problems were just that they was moving around a lot and not engaging, and that's something else I need to learn how to deal with. So every fight I've come away and had to pick something new up, and I think on the whole the year's gone spot on.
Yeah, you had a bit of varied opponents and stuff, and people who came to win against you. They weren't there just like you said, just to be knockovers. What's the biggest thing you've sort of learnt about yourself this year then? Because obviously you'll see online, I'm sure you do, and you'll hear about negativity and stuff like that. What's the sort of biggest thing you've learnt about the previous year?
There's a couple of things really. One thing from like a technical point of view is that I'm much better when I'm taking my time and thinking about what I'm doing, so I don't need to just get in that mindset where I want to fly at them and just try and, like I say, try and bulldoze them. If I just try and pick them apart that little bit more, I see I'm like a completely different fighter. I think you could see the difference in my last fight out in Spain, where I just wasn't bothered about, I wanted to impress, but it weren't playing on my mind too much, and I was forcing it, and then the stoppage just come on its own. So I'd say learning to relax was one big thing, and another area out of the ring, if like, is that not made of glass, where people, I've had a lot of stick from, especially after the Tottenham fight, where it's not going to get any worse than that, and I've dealt with it, overcome it, and I think that's learning to deal with that now early on in my career is going to stand me in good stead, because no matter how well you box, you're always going to have someone who wants to have a pop and like knock you down a little bit. So I know that I've got the confidence in myself now that I can deal with that as well.
Do you think it benefited you going to Spain and having that show where, for instance, maybe there was less media attention on you? Because I remember I was at the Gibraltar fight, cameras in your face everywhere you go. You dealt with it like you were cool as cucumber all week, whether you were inside or not, I don't know. And then obviously you've got the AJ fight at Tottenham. You're fighting on huge stages, whereas a lot of people when they start their career, it might be like your dad said before, like leisure centre. You were on pay-per-view events. Did it help going to Spain and having that time away where you can just be like, relax a bit more and focus on perfecting like your craft in the ring?
Yeah, it did. I think I'm not saying that that's what we need to do going forward, just stick on small shows, because I think the massive benefits to being on the big ones like I have been, and if you can get used to that early on, like I think I was doing, I think each fight I was getting that little bit more and more relaxed. Still not as perfect, and I still needed to relax a little bit more. But I think the Tottenham one, I think we learned as a whole, like all the team, that it was a little bit much, and I think we underestimated just how big a show it was. And because again, in the fight week leading up to the Spurs show, it was probably the most relaxed I'd been again, but it just hit me in the ring walk really, where I looked and I was like, Jesus, what's this? And one thing Matt said, where he could tell it had got to me a bit, because I normally respond really well to instruction, like anything he says, like in the gym, if I'm sparring, he'll say something from the corner and I'll do it straight away. And there's the same sort of thing in the fights, where he said he could just see, he was telling me stuff in between rounds, and I was just looking round, and do you know, where like a bit deer in the headlights,
a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah, and it just worked going in. So I think like we've learnt from that. We took it to a smaller show, and it was like I say, it was night and day. But I don't see now we're going back to another big show coming up. I don't think I'm going to go back to what I did before, because I've seen the benefits of staying relaxed, and I think I've took a lot of pressure. Getting that first stoppage just took the pressure off now, where I do think I'll just go in there and look to box.
Do you think you're under a bit of pressure to maybe get a first stoppage? Because obviously you'll get it all the time, but obviously because your dad was known as a ferocious puncher and extremely aggressive in the ring, would you feel like you were almost like, you know what, I've got to stop every opponent, or the stoppage is a must kind of thing?
Subconsciously maybe, and I think the guy who fought in my first fight, who wasn't very good, but you can't question it, like his toughness. He took some big shots, and I think in all his fight, I think he'd only been stopped once. So I think because I didn't stop him there, I really wanted to stop the next one, and then because I really wanted to stop him, I didn't, because I was forcing it, and it was the same pattern really. And then whereas last time it just happened, I think if I'd have boxed the majority of my past opponents like I did that night, where I was relaxed and just chipping away at it instead of just trying to stop him, I think I'd have probably stopped them. So I think like that set the standard for myself, and I know what I need to do now, so I don't think I'll revert back.
No, absolutely. Do you think sometimes that you're maybe in a no-win situation with people? Because obviously you see a lot of people online. The big thing that I kept saying was, he needs to go on a small show, and it's this, that and the other. And what came across to me was, well, is he supposed to say no to fighting on a Joshua undercard? Is he supposed to turn down a Dillian Whyte pay-per-view? Because, like you've just mentioned there, although it overwhelmed you a little bit at the Joshua fight, when you're going through the ranks, providing obviously your career goes as you want it to, when you get to a big stage, you've been on the big stage, so you'll almost be accustomed to it. So do you almost feel like you can't win? You'll always be someone that says something.
Definitely. I'd be amazed if you found someone, if they said, do you fancy boxing on the AJ undercard, and they knocked it back. But again, I don't think it was bad. I don't think the show itself was a bad move. I think we was too high up on the card, and like we say, we've learnt from that now. I think we underestimated just how big a deal it was, and looking back, it's never been done before. Someone at this stage in the career, and like a novice pro, boxing a couple before the main event on probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest show in British boxing history. So like I say, we've learnt from it, and I think now we're just going to judge it a little bit better, where still have the big shows, like have it a bit lower down on the cards, and just our learning.
Absolutely. Let's come on to your next show then. Talk to me, when are you next back out? What's the card? Have you got any information on that?
Yeah, the next show will be the 27th of Feb on the Akoli undercard. I've got a good test really, a step up in opponent. He's got a winning record. I'm not sure when that's being announced, but yeah, it's just another step in the right direction, another little test, and I think he's going to bring. I'm expecting my toughest fight, and again things that I'm going to have to learn and overcome and take a lot from it.
Absolutely. Right, just before we go, Campbell, because I know you give me a little bit of your time today, I just want to know, there's some huge fights coming up. Huge fights. We've got Liam Williams versus Eubank Jr., Kell Brook versus Amir Khan. Can I get your opinions on the Liam Williams Eubank Jr. fight first? Can I give you a prediction for that?
I'm going to say Williams points. I don't think he's shown his toughness over the years, Eubank. I don't think he'll stop him. I think it'll be a close fight as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Eubank did win it, but I'm going to put my money on Williams. I just think out of the two, I think his skill set's a little bit better, only by a slight margin, but yeah, go for Williams as long as he's at his best. Obviously, he's a change of camp.
Moved to Adam Booth,
and not long. He's not long been in that stable before this fight, so that might play a factor. But I think if Williams turns up at his best, I think he'll win.
And Amir Khan, Kell Brook, this has been one of the biggest fights, I suppose, in British boxing history, and it would have been mega a few years ago. It'd have definitely sold Wembley out. But as it's getting closer, I just mentioned to Luke there, the excitement seems to still be there for it, even if they are maybe not what they were. So what do you think happens in that fight?
That's a really tough one. I think in the primes, I'd have always said Kell. I'd have always fancied him. I think I'd have caught him eventually. And I think even though Khan's really, I think Khan's speed will win in the rounds, but I've always thought that Kell's got like the sharp, good timing, and he'd have caught him eventually. So, like now, the fight coming up, like they're both not the fighters they were. So, I think again Khan will be winning the rounds with his speed, and the question marks are whether Kell's still got the timing to pull that shot off. I think if he catches him, he stops him, but it is a tough one. I'm probably going to say Khan points.
It's going to be a good fight. I can't wait. Hopefully we'll be there ringside for it. Look, Campbell Hatton, thanks for talking to Into Boxing. We'll catch up for you. I think we've got someone there for fight week, and we'll support you on your journey, obviously.
Nice one, mate.